Let's be honest. Most companies are meh. They're boring, right? Most companies are boring. We are struggling to stand out in crowded markets. There are more and more companies, more and more products coming into markets, and we just have a hard time. Companies have a hard time standing out, like differentiating ourselves from our competitors. It's difficult to, it's difficult to understand how we can actually take something and make it special. Like, we don't know what makes us special anymore. We don't exactly know why people buy from us, right? And we try to solve that. Companies try to solve that by being the loudest out there, by creating the most content, by using ChatGPT to create tons and tons of content, by creating tons of video, by being the loudest, so somebody would hear us. But standing out is not about being the loudest, is it? It's about resonating with your best fit clients. It's about about connecting with the right people. It's about forming sort of meaningful relationships between our products and our clients. And so if you're not resonating with your audience, if you're just trying to be loud, get as many users into your product as possible, you're building a meh business, one that has average cost of user acquisition, one that has average conversion rate, and that makes average revenue. And trust me, I've tried that. It's not worth it, because it comes with a lot of struggle and a lot of pain and not a whole lot of money. For you to not build an average business, you need to stand out. But what if I told you that you could make competitors irrelevant? What if I told you that people could completely ignore the competitors and were naturally drawn to your products? This season on One Message Away podcast, it's all about removing the competition, standing out in crowded markets. And today we're talking about what you're doing wrong if people don't engage with your products and your content, and what to do about it. So if you want to build a business that's exciting and growing, then listen on. This episode is for you. One Message Away podcast is a podcast on solving marketing related problems in your company, helping you connect with relevant audiences, convert them into paying customers, and becoming a leader in your niche. The podcast drops in seasons. Each season is focused on one specific topic. In the first season, we talk about how to eliminate your competition, how to stand out. Everything is supported by expert interviews, my work, my stories, my experience having worked with more than 30 companies one-on-one and more than 300 companies through workshops, helping them become leaders in their niche. Want to become a niche leader? Subscribe and get unique content to your inbox every 14 days on a Saturday. Let's start with this. If you want to build your company to grow sustainably, it needs to be perceived as the market leader. That was the first lesson that I got. Like, it was years ago. I was at the beginning of my consulting career, and I had a client in California. Let's call him Bob. Bob had a consulting company, a small team. There were 20 consultants in the company, but a small marketing team, and he wanted me to lead his team into getting him more clients, because Bob knew how to convert leads into clients, but he didn't get enough leads because he was afraid to stand out on the market. Now, my suggestion was, people go to the person who they perceive as authority. So let's build your personal profile. Let's expose you on LinkedIn. Let's create niche leading content. Problem was, Bob didn't want to do that, right? Because creating niche leading content is difficult to do. It's a difficult task. There is a lot of prep going on. You need to create videos, record yourself, expose yourself on LinkedIn. There is a lot of engagement, building actual relationships, etc., etc. So it's a difficult thing to do. And so Bob didn't want to do it. And we managed to scale Bob's business 10 times, right? With 10x his revenue. The problem was, every time we did that, we went back to the original revenue. Why? Bob was not perceived as an authority. And because Bob didn't do content and he wasn't perceived as the authority when he was busy, he couldn't get additional clients. So clients were not naturally drawn to his business. And that's what you need. If you want to grow sustainably, you need to be perceived as the authority. You need to be seen as the leader in your space. People want to work with leaders. So stop doing things the way Bob does it. get out of the loop, get your business out of the loop, and start doing difficult things that leads to sustainable growth. One thing that was extremely apparent right from when I started working with Bob was that he tried a lot. He tried a lot of things. His company, they started doing podcasts that lasted about 3 months. They started doing LinkedIn content that lasted about 2 months. They started, ads, they started partnership programs, they started a lot. The problem was every marketing initiative lasted for, couple of months, couple of weeks, maybe 6 months. Nothing was sort of like, they didn't put 100% in one single idea that they believed would actually work. And that's the biggest challenge that you actually have in your business. You need to get out of the loop of, just trying things, trying to find that easy hack that's going to get you 100 leads, 100 prospects, the next 10,000 users in your software. It's not going to be easy. It's about doing the difficult things. Let me give you another example. I was working with Kevin. Kevin is a Spanish guy. He owns a company. Essentially, he was employed in a tech company. He found there is an unmet need on the SEO market, and he created a SaaS business around that need. So he created, a micro SaaS, and he was growing steadily to the first million, as it's usually the case with a good product. So if you have a good product, the product will lead that initial growth. And Kevin, managed to grow to about a million in revenue a year, which is when the problems sort of started, because obviously the competitors or companies saw that and they started coming into his territory. So Kevin turned to me and he asked me to figure out what's going on and to solve it. And when I came into the company, so the company is doing about $1 million a year. And when I came into the company and did my audit, the results of the audit were crystal clear. Essentially, a lot of competitors are moving into the market. And that means that the ad space is getting more crowded. So the ads are getting more and more expensive. At the same time, if you have more competitors, people have more choice. And so I tried opening Kevin's website and another 2 websites. They weren't different. There were 3 products that were absolutely the same. So what did people do when they saw the same kind of landing pages? They based their decision on the only thing that was different, and that's pricing, right? So they went with the cheapest choice. So I showed Kevin where the problem is. He essentially doesn't have a differentiator. He is not different to his competition. And so because of the raising ad prices and the lowering conversion rates, he's essentially bleeding a lot of money, right? So how do you solve this? We started the way we always start these kinds of projects. We try to find what's the one thing that buyers, premium buyers, the one that pay the biggest money in the product, buy us for. So why do they buy our products and not the competitors, right? That's your differentiation. So we did an onboarding survey, and in that survey, so in the onboarding, the person had to set up their company account, and in that process of setting up the account, we asked them one simple question: what it is that you're trying to do with the software. And we used that in combination with the post-purchase survey on why you chose us, and we essentially created messaging based on that, put it on the landing page, and the results were immediate. We saw a spike in traffic, or we saw a spike in traffic from the landing page into the free trial, right? So we knew that we were onto something. Essentially, the promise wasn't as good as it could have been. The only problem with that solution was that the competition copied our texts in a matter of weeks. And so we were back to square one. Again, our conversions started dropping. Again, we tried, changing the texts, A/B testing a bit, changing the email campaigns. The problem was obviously the moment we did that, this time the competition copied us in the matter of days, right? And so we couldn't get ahead. We couldn't beat our competitors because even they were less experienced, the companies were newer, their tech was worse. We couldn't compete because they were promising the same things that we did. And, the people don't see the tech and the algorithms behind it. So even if we delivered better results, they still, we weren't winning that war. And so Kevin and me, we had a few long strategic meetings and try to figure out what's the sort of long-term solution, what's the unfair advantage that we can get. So how can we build a lasting advantage? And it took some time, but in I think it was 6 or 7, 8 months later, we essentially published a new product or a new version of the product with a gamified system that we developed in that time. So what we did was we turned users who were best paying customers. We essentially got them and their answers and figured out what they actually wanted from the software and what would be the best possible medium to give them that or to show them the value. And we found that we can actually compete. The biggest advantage that we can get over the competitors is the user experience. So people perceive the sort of a solution that gives you the best results in combination with the best experience as the best in the business, right? And so what we did was we turned that user experience into the best in Kevin's niche. So we created a gamified system. So you came into the software, you got the first few points when you set up the account. Then you got another set of points when you connected your domain. Then you got another set of points when you did the third action, etc., etc. And that drove sort of usage. It drove action from users, and they had the best experience in the market. So when now people came to the website, we had a differentiator immediately, and then when they started free trials with us and possibly with the competitors, they saw that the experience in our product is much, much better, and they were prepared to pay a bigger price, a better price, a higher price to work with us, right? And we got an unfair advantage that the competitors couldn't just replicate simply because we were not, they didn't see algorithm behind that experience. Plus, they didn't have the data on their users, so they didn't know exactly how that experience looks like anyway, right? And we see that, and it's not just us, essentially. Apple is doing the same thing, right? They're perceived as being the best in business because they have the best user experience and they provide products that satisfy the user's needs perfectly. That's where you want to be. You want to be the authority on the market. You want to be perceived as the best in your niche. You want to be a niche leader. And for you to be the niche leader in the long term, the real goal here is to think, how can I build something that truly matters to my clients and ideally my competitors can't replicate? Think about it. Think about it for your business, right? What can you do? What can you build? How can you build something that truly matters to my clients and that the competitors can't replicate? That's your secret. And now if you compare the two stories, if you compare Bob's story to Kevin's story, Bob, scaled 10x and went back to the original revenue and then just keeps repeating that same motion. Kevin scaled from 1 million to 3 million and has a growing business. So, doing the hard things, doing things in the long run always beats sort of quick hacks. You want to be positioned as the authority, but for that you need to understand how to get there. So most companies are boring simply because, they don't think about the long term. They don't think about how can we use something to our advantage? How can we build something for our advantage? Because those things are typically difficult to do, right? The problem is what we are left with is a ton of products that all sort of look the same. And then essentially, you're not prepared to pay the price for that software. So, for example, there is a lot of AI wrappers right now, like specialized AI software, where software that helps you build your own agency. It acts as your own agency. So you have an AI agent that does project management for you. You have an AI agent that does strategy for you. You have an AI agent, whatever it is, right? That does content for you and so on. And now you input stuff and you get a result. The problem is that result is typically not so much better than ChatGPT. And then it's difficult to switch, to switch to that to that new product simply because you now have another tool to manage, right? And you have another expense on your account, another subscription that goes out every month, right? And so what do? We retreat, because we don't want that. We want to work with one that's the best. And on that, for example, when I started my career, my first company I co-founded was actually a B2B VR AR service agency. And when I analyzed 200 of our competitors, because there are a lot of agencies out there, when I analyzed 200 of them, I found an interesting thing. Like 190 of them said we are different, right? But if 190 agencies out of 200 say we are different, then nobody's really fucking different, is it? So, stay away from just generic stuff that anyone can say, right? We are top quality, we are the best service, we are the best tool, whatever. That doesn't mean anything, right? Because if you were the best, I probably already know you. Like, I've done some research. If you were the best, you would be the first one to come to mind, right? And the trick really is you want to be perceived as a niche leader. So someone who is the best for a specific niche, and then they don't have to say that they're the best. They just have to be the best, right? And so stay away from, generic sort of solutions, generic messagings, generic sort of ideas that are easy to make, that, appeal to everybody, because in reality, you are creating another business, right? You want to be positioned as a niche leader. And here is why I want to be positioned as a niche leader. People of Winter, they did some research and talked to CMOs in the company about their sales process, about their buying process. So how do they buy software? And they found that essentially you choose a product before you even do product demos. So for example, the process would be an assistant does some research for us, tries to figure out what the best software is on the market for us to use for a specific problem that we have or a challenge that we have, right? And the assistant essentially narrows it down to 5. By the time that research is done, the company already has a pretty good idea on who they're going to go with. Then they go into the whole thing where they contact companies and do product demos. And they still do 3 to 5 product demos, but they've already made their choice. So they've already said, okay, we're probably going with option B, but we're keeping option A, C, D, and E just to make sure, just to de-risk the decision, because we want to make sure we didn't miss anything. So we want to make sure in the demo, we want to make sure that we didn't forget about something. We want to make sure that there isn't something out there that we're going to regret later on. And so we are not committing to that choice yet, but we've essentially made that choice. You want to be that choice. You want to be that niche leader. You want to be the favorite in that case, because the favorite gets 75% of deals. So if you want to get 75% of deals, you want to be that niche leader. And now, if you see that you're converting 10, 15, 20, 30% of your clients into actually paying customers, now you're essentially someone who is there just for the sake of being there. You're essentially making sure that your competitors are getting the business. That's your purpose in their decision-making process. So if you want to remove yourself from that, if you want to actually get the deals, you need to be perceived as the niche leader. So you want to be perceived as the niche leader. You want to become as the go-to choice for your ICP customers. Well, here is when the One Message Away framework comes in. Essentially, it's a 3-step framework that revolves around a concept. Basically, you need one memorable idea that captures your value and delivers it to your customers. So essentially, when people think about something, they need to think about you. When, I try to convince my friend that this solution that I tried is really good, you need to give me a couple of words how I describe your solution so that I can easily pitch and sell to my friend. And that's, how word of mouth then goes forward. That's like how people are then attracted to your product. So this is what we'll be talking about in this podcast, and especially in this season. We have expert interviews coming up. We have more of my ramblings coming up as well. More of my stories, use cases, case studies, supported by numbers, everything coming up in the next episodes. Enjoy it. And if you're not yet, subscribe yourself to the newsletter. You'll get additional content from One Message Away. Let me know, I'm planning to do a lot more of this content. Season 2 is already, like, the planning for season 2 is already in progress. So do let me know what you want to hear about. Like, what's your number one business challenge? Just give it to me in the comments, or write to me at hello@onemessageaway.com, one with the number, and let me know your thoughts. What would you like to hear? Who would you like to hear from? Like, do you have a special guest in mind? Do you have anyone who you can recommend? Would you like to share a story? Let me know. Enjoy, click all the buttons, and see you next time. May your customers love you and understand your products.